Getting your finances dialed in is only one part of a successful retirement transition. Beyond just having the financial boxes checked, there's also a fear of the unknown that tends to hold people back from the decision to actually retire. On today's episode of Ready for Retirement, I have guest Joe Kuhn with me, who recently went through that retirement transition and is here to share what he learned so that you can apply the same principles to your situation. I am joined today by Joe Kuhn. Joe, welcome to the show.
I am very excited to be here, James.
Well, I'm excited for you to be here too, Joe. I think when we look at retirement, we're conditioned to believe, or maybe we think that it kind of comes down to a math problem. How big does my portfolio need to be? Run the numbers. When do I collect Social Security? Run the number. What does health insurance need to look like? Which are all obviously very important things. But people then get to retirement age, or they check the boxes, they run the numbers, they say, hey, this is very doable. But there's still a big hang up in a lot of people's mind. And I think that hang up is kind of the emotional side or the fear of the unknown. And I thought, who better to come on the show and talk about that than someone who has retired,
Yeah,
who has his own YouTube channel dedicated to helping people understand what that transition was like, how he did this, and hopefully just have some open, candid feedback of what that transition was like for you, if you don't mind sharing.
that sounds exciting. Good. Let's go.
Well, this is what jumped out to me initially about you, Joe, is you were in a corporate job. You retired. Early retirement means something different to everyone, but you retired at age 54. What prompted that decision?
Yeah, well, the first thing is my intention was to retire at 55. My dad retired at 59, and my mom and dad, they always told me, man, we just loved our 60s. And I'm sitting there saying, well, if the 60s were good, I mean, 50s may be a little bit better. And I've always lived fairly modestly. And I just said, I've got enough now, but that wasn't enough to make the transition. I had a niche that I've learned around reliability and maintenance of equipment. Not exciting to anybody listening here, but reliability and maintenance of equipment, it's kind of a coaching that I was doing. I love developing people, sharing information with the next generation. And in my job, 50% of my job I just loved. I was working with a lot of people, got to help them, but then 50% just got repetitive. I was in this corporate America for 32 years, loved my job, absolutely loved my job, would choose my career over again. But, I felt like I was just wasting 50% of my time doing the same thing over and over again. And I had this itch to really start my own consulting business, just work very part-time, maybe 10, 15% of the time, and then help people with what I've learned about reliability and maintenance that was unique. And do I want to do that when I'm 64 or when I'm 54? So I picked 54, and I didn't, and you hear this a lot, and I've heard this on your channel, is I didn't want to be 70 and look back and regret that I didn't try to start my own business. I didn't spend my 50s where I wanted to spend my time. I didn't want that regret. Now, yeah, there is a lot of fear, when you retire that early, what could happen over the next 35 years. But two things for me. One, I mentioned regret. I didn't want that regret. And maybe this is unique about me, but I don't like fear being a reason I do or don't do something. If that just makes me want to jump like, okay, I'm not doing this because I'm scared. I'm not doing this because everybody else isn't doing this. So fear, I don't like being a reason. My background is in engineering. So I like a lot of data and being scared just is something I just don't like influencing my decision. So that's why.
I'm curious, Joe, you mentioned that parents retired, say 60. And so you said, well, if 60s are great, how much better could 50s be? Something that I do, not always, but something I notice with a lot of people and helping clients retire is sometimes the unspoken, maybe even not necessarily true, but that expectations of parents. A lot of people, they continue working because they say, well, my parents worked until they were 70 or until they couldn't work any longer. And they almost feel this burden that I need to do the same. Not everyone, But I'm wondering if that was reversed for you in a way. Did you almost feel like because parents did that, it was easier to transition out, or do you not feel as if that played a part?
Well, you know, they were role models. They were the closest role models that I had that had retired. So all, I got a lot of evidence on, neighbors and friends, but your parents, you're living that. And so yeah, I think that was not an expectation by them at all. But it was just their experience through that. My dad worked for the U.S. government, had a government pension and all that, and it just worked out well for him. So yeah, I think you're exactly right. What just as a child, your parents,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
sure my kids will say the same thing someday in the future about me.
Maybe they'll retire at 45. They say we got to keep the
Good
train
for them.
going. You mentioned that you don't like to be driven by fear, which I think is wonderful. That being said, I'm sure there still were fears. And as you're approaching 54, 55, now you made the leap at 54, I'm curious, what were some of those fears that began bubbling up about retirement?
Well, the biggest one, and this is not going to be news to anybody, but fear of the unknown. I mean, I went to school to learn. I went, to engineering school to learn. I got a job to provide, to make money. Your whole career is, you're trying to build and make more money, get more responsibility, whatever it happens to be. And then you want to jump into the unknown abyss. The easiest thing to do is to keep working. I mean, I put forth, I have four great kids, okay, from 33 down to 26, and they're all engineers. Super proud of them. Great, great kids. And I paid about half of their college. Got my house paid off and all that. So here at 54, these are the money earning years, and it's people look at you like you're crazy. I mean, I was making my top salary the day I retired. And it's just a crazy thing to do. You're not trained for it. So just that fear of the unknown. What am I doing? If I work one more year, look how much more money I can save. If I work 2 more years, look how much money I can save. But what kept gnawing at me, James, is my time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like half the day I was doing great things, half the day I'm rolling my eyes. Like this, like, not again. We've done this before. I know how it's going to turn out. And everybody eventually makes this decision. Some, I made it at 54. Some people make it at 50. Some people make it at 70. You stop trading time for money.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody makes that decision. When's it going to be? So number one is just fear of the unknown. And, as a subset of that is like, look what I'm giving up. Oh my gosh, look what I'm giving up. But, I did have enough money because I was raised middle class, I still drive. People make fun of me. My neighbors that are going to work all make fun of me. I drive a car that's, it's got 193,000 miles on it, and it's a hand-me-down from my wife, and it's a minivan. So what am I driving a minivan for? I don't drive that much,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not into a lot of things, a lot of stuff. I
Yeah.
like experiences and relationships much more now. So my biggest fear was, just of the unknown, regrets. I mentioned that earlier. Did I want to be 70 and say, boy, I could have retired when I was, how many 80-year-olds do you talk to that say, boy, I wish I would have worked 2 or 3 more years?
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Nobody says that. So that was, and I've got some things I want to work in later around, I was quite naive about a few things. I had enough money. I didn't have millions or anything like that I could just be a drunken sailor. But, the math worked out good for me at how I'm living now and have some go-go spending time. But it was really just, what am I giving up? Boy, this is not the conservative route. This is the radical route. Just to retire, 5, 6, 7 years earlier than what most people are doing. That was really the main thing. Fear of the unknown and giving up what was pretty darn good.
I'd love to dig into that a little bit more before we go on to which
Yeah.
of these fears of the unknown materialized versus which maybe just proved to be fears, but maybe slightly irrational fears. You have this combination, as I see it, of you're in your peak earning years. You just put four children through college. You maybe just went through the most expensive time of your life in doing that. You have that combined with you do really enjoy certain aspects of your job. It's not like you were miserable, it sounds like, and couldn't wait to get out of there. On top of that, you almost have these societal pressures. You talk about your neighbors going to work. It's you're in your peak earning years. It's celebrated. You should save more, get a bigger house, spend more. All of that almost pressure to continue working. How did you frame or contrast that with what you're saying, Joe, of I don't want to live with regrets. I don't want to be driven with fear. Was there specific exercises you went through? Were there specific conversations you had? What really allowed that to actually materialize and not just get kicked down the road
Well,
indefinitely?
believe me, I've talked to a lot of retirees that, I worked for one company my whole career, one company. And I knew a lot of people that retired, and you talk to them and just, you benchmark them. Like, my parents were probably paramount in all this, but you talk to these people and there's not a single one of them that says they wish they would have worked longer.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a single one of them. So, hey, whenever you can, move on out. The other thing that is really important to me, and I highly encourage this on my videos, is you got to retire to something, not from something. So, what the question you're asking is, boy, how did you make that decision? Well, that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, what are you going to do? What's that unlock for you? Okay. You got total control of your time. My wife and I travel a lot. We traveled with our kids, went on these vacations, went to Yellowstone, went to Florida, did all those kind of things. But in my early 50s, when we were traveling, I could be gone a week, could be gone 2 weeks. You hurry up, you go on vacation, you got to hurry up and get there, hurry up and get back. Well, now we just take slow vacations. We went out to Utah once and we didn't know when we were coming back. We just said, hey, let's go. We didn't make reservations. We wanted to see the 5 national parks out there, and just did slow travel. So, taking double the amount of vacations, and not spending wild money. We're not going on Alaska cruises, every year. But we did like to travel. My kids live all over the United States, and going and seeing them. So started to crystallize, really get specific on what you're going to do. In the first 6 months I retired, I took 3 trips, and we knew what trips those were going to be. Okay. And so we had that detail. We went down to Mexico to see some family. We went to Florida, and we had a wedding in the Richmond, Virginia area, and stayed there for a couple weeks. So we had these exciting things to look forward to. In addition to, I wanted to start consulting to pass on, maybe, like I said, 10-15% of the time, to pass on some information to the next generation, to that maintenance manager and plant manager that they're 30-40 years old. And I've made a lot of mistakes, I've learned a lot of things, I want to pass that on to them. So that, to me, is what bridged it, was what I was retiring to. Mm-hmm. Because it's really, financially, it's kind of a dumb thing to do, to retire at 54. It makes so much more sense financially to retire at 58 or 60. So much more comfortable, so much more, less stress with money. Maybe I can, buy a newer car or something like that. But got to look at that other side of the coin. What's it enable you to do? And then there were that was my pre-thinking, but then there were some surprises too that will, I'm sure we'll talk about later. So what surprised me in retirement, all to the good.
Yeah. Well, you're almost making decisions, from what I'm hearing you say, Joe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're almost making decisions from the standpoint of, what decisions will my future self be glad I made, as opposed to what decisions will my future self regret. And the hard part there is, your future self is going to want you to make the decisions that today are sometimes harder to make. It is making the difficult decision of stepping away from something in your peak earning years, or stepping away from something when there is that fear of the other side. One more question that I want to get to. What were some of these surprises? What were some of the things that maybe you wish you knew before retiring that you do know now? You retired at 54. When do you feel as if you had that sense of what you were retiring to was crystallized? Was it, hey, by 50, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and it was just a matter of working through to being, the age of being able to do it? When did you start to have that sense of what you were retiring to?
Well, I would say probably around 51, 52. I had a job with the company I worked for where I was an internal consultant to them on reliability maintenance, the same thing I wanted to retire to. But for 4 years, I did that globally. I traveled around the world and would work with plants and maintenance managers on this. So I had a taste of what it was like and what worked, what didn't work, and what I enjoyed doing. So, but the reason I'm laughing is I'm doing very little of that right now. I think retirement, if you think I don't know what it would be like for other people, but I was confident, hey, I'm going to retire. I'm going to do reliability and maintenance consulting. I'm going to do this for about 5 years, maybe 6 years, get to 60, stop it all, but just do the coaching and the developing of people and feel good about that. Well, I retired at the beginning of 2019. Guess what happened in 2020?
Yeah, something happened.
All my consulting went away. All of it, everybody stopped, lockdown, everything went away. And then I kept making videos. Okay. I started making videos on that topic and kept making videos. And then somebody asked me, they said, well, hey, how old are you? And I said I was 54, and they said, well, were you able to retire? So I just I was making videos on reliability and maintenance, and to supplement going to plants and working with them and just giving away information. I felt that need to give away to the next generation. How does the next generation learn? They learn on YouTube. My kids are all this age, they learn everything. So I said, I'm going to make these videos on being a maintenance manager, plant manager. Well, then COVID hit and everything all changed. And then like I said, somebody asked me about, retiring early. And so I made one video and it got like 100 times the views. So then I just started making videos on what I was thinking about, what I was doing, what concerned me, what surprises I had. And then my channel just morphed into retirement coach.
Yeah.
And that's been the transition for me. So I still I write for a couple magazines on reliability maintenance. I speak at a couple conferences, but that's very little time. It really is little time. I'm having fun with that, but right now I'm doing a lot more reliability and maintenance. And I was doing some coaching, one-on-one coaching with people that wanted some help through that transition, and making videos and just loving it. But I'm doing something completely different than what I thought. And I think that's what's super cool about retirement is you get to try these journeys on. I used to fish a whole lot. When I retired, I went fishing a lot. I don't fish at all anymore. I kind of got that out of my system. I spend a lot of time learning right now. I've got a retirement group. I just love it. There's 5 retired people, and we talk about different historical topics and how they apply to today. What can we learn about them in our life today? We studied Fidel Castro last month, and this month coming up, it's going to be on Teddy Roosevelt, and just fascinating things. I probably have had 10 different journeys in 5 years of retirement. And so being fixated on say, hey, I got to pick the perfect one and I'm going to stick with it for 10 years. That's not been my journey.
Well, I think that's so important for people to realize. And by the way, just as a quick aside for anyone listening or watching, check out Joe's channel. It's Joe Kuhn, Kuhn is the channel name. And then I believe your handle, Joe, is Joe Kuhn Loves Retirement. Is that correct?
Yeah, you just type in Joe Kuhn and I'll come up.
Perfect. Kuhn, Joe Kuhn.
Thanks.
One person, I remember he commented on a video I did on YouTube, and it was something about everyone has these concerns, and they'll say it one way or the other. Hey, I'm afraid to retire because I retire on a Friday. What do I do the next Monday? What do I do? And I remember one person, he put it, he said the first 6 months were very difficult, but it wasn't necessarily that he changed things around that much. And in month 7 and beyond, he said, we're incredible. He said, I was still doing the same things. It just was reprioritizing the order in which I do some of these things. And I don't even remember what it was, but it was like going to this group of people he enjoyed, working out, reading, something or other. Is that he even just shifting the order in which I did things revitalized my retirement. And so I think that what you're speaking to, Joe, is have something to retire to, but also you're kind of learning a brand new skill set.
Yeah.
And when you were first getting into college or first getting into your job or first starting a family, did you have everything figured out? No. You
No.
thought you knew what to expect and you worked hard and you worked diligently and then you figured it out. The difference, I think, is when you're starting college or starting a job or starting a family, there's some pressures on you to learn it, to get better at it, or else
Yeah.
versus retirement, I think it is very easy just to drift and not have those self-imposed pressures.
Yeah.
What were the biggest surprises in your mind, either positive or negative, as you went through that transition?
The going through the transition, first thing is, for the first couple months, it felt like I was on vacation. My mind kept thinking about work and, what, hey, send this person an email. Hey, don't forget about this. So it took a couple months to realize that you weren't going back to work. Another thing that was hard for me is, and I know a lot of people that listen to your channel and mine, is they're achievers. If you're talking about retirement, you're a high achiever. And in retirement, I had this list of things. It's kind of comical. I had a list of things the last year before I retired. I'm writing down, I want to do this, I want to do this. These were jobs around the house, things I wanted to just fix up. And I'm saying, oh, this ought to take me 3-4 years. I had it done in 2 months. My to-do list is I'm just, because I was task oriented. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. And one of the hardest things for me was to slow down. I was rewarded for years for being able to go 100 miles an hour, to multitask, get a lot of things done in a day. And retirement, that's not necessarily winning. So slowing down, just as an example, I used to cut my grass, okay, and I would just cut it straight through. It takes me about an hour and 20 minutes to do everything. Well, now I take about an hour break in between. I cut the front grass and then I'll just sit down and I'll watch YouTube videos, maybe listen to music or do something else. And then I'll go back. And if somebody calls me and said, hey, Joe, you want to go golfing or go fishing or go shoot skeet or something I'll say, all right, hey, fine, let's go. Really just the pace slows down. Another thing, and this, it's hard to say what's number one, but one that I was embarrassingly wrong on was stress. If you would have asked me the day before or any time of my career, and you would have said, hey, Joe, are you under stress? I said, you're crazy. I just love this. I love it. I love what I'm doing. It was exciting. The production manufacturing war, the environment in production and manufacturing is exciting. There's highs and lows. There's wins. There's losses. I love manufacturing. And I just love the game, kind of like being quarterback of a football team. What do you mean? I love this. I love this. And I'm not under stress. No, I'm not. I love my job. And then when I retired, it was like setting down a 10-pound weight that I was carrying around with me. I had no idea, because we were a 24/7 operation, 365. Christmas Day was another day of manufacturing. This process had to run continuously. And I was caught off guard by that. Just having meetings, expectations, presentations, giving your opinion, taking risky positions, all those demands on me, safety, environmental. I was always, I got a call at 10 o'clock at night. It wasn't a good call. Somebody did call me up and say, hey, everything's running great at the plant, Joe. No, nobody, they don't do that. So stress. And, since I retired, a couple other surprises related to this was, how many sicknesses and, physical health is related to stress, what that causes. And I started focusing a lot more on my health. I'm down 35 pounds from the day I retired.
Wow.
I've always exercised, but I started eating better. I was a stress eater, and I didn't even know what was going on. I didn't even know I was under pressure and stress. I was one of those guys that said I love my job and smiled, and I said, "I mean, you're crazy for even asking me that question. I can't imagine doing anything else." So that was a big surprise for me. Is that I was under stress.
Do you find, Joe, because I know you've consulted people on that retirement transition, has that been a similar theme, even with people you've consulted, of being under that stress, but not maybe consciously realizing it?
Well, yes, it's a constant theme that I'm throwing out, but most people aren't catching because I think I think they got blinders on like I did. Oh, I love my job. I love, I'm not under stress. I like what I'm doing. Well, you set an alarm clock in the morning. What are you thinking about Sunday night? What are you thinking about Monday? Are you happy it's Monday? You got all these little pressures that you're just you don't even know you're a fish in water and you don't even know there's water. You ask a fish what water is, and they'll go, "What? What do you mean? What's about?" You don't even know about it. So I think most people don't realize it till they're on the other side and they say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize this was going on." Stress is a big deal, and we don't talk about it enough. I don't. I think as a guy, as a man, that's a sign of weakness to say you're under stress.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. The fish analogy, I think, is perfect there. You don't realize it until you're out of it, just because it's been so long and you've been conditioned to believe that's just of what it is. One thing, so obviously there's the what am I going to do? What am I retiring to? That's a big concern of people's. The other is, just put simply, how much am I going to spend? I think
Yeah,
I'm going to spend this amount. Does that actually pan out to be what I'm going to spend?
yeah.
How was your specific experience, just related to how much you thought you might spend in retirement compared to what you actually did spend?
The short version is I'm spending 80% of what I thought I was going to spend. Okay. Now that's not what my, 80% of my salary, like, you read some places. I'm an engineer. So I have a spreadsheet. And I was listing, here's what I think my expenses are going to be in retirement. Okay. And I'm spending I just calculated before because I knew you were going to ask me this. This is you got to get this one right in retirement. So I knew you were going to ask, right at 19% less than what I thought. And there's a couple, well, at least one comical thing in there is I forgot to factor in that I'm not driving my car to work every day. So, our second car, I was driving about 15,000 miles a year on my second car. Do you know what I'm driving on that car now?
I would love to know.
2,000 miles a year.
Well,
Well,
little less.
tires, gas, oil changes. I mean, it really adds up about how much, at, $3.50 a gallon gas. It's like, oh my gosh. Another thing that was big in that is retiree medical. I was estimating like $1,500 a month is what I was estimating. And I'm married. My wife, we've been married 35 years. And so I put in 1,500. Hey, and I'm paying 950. I found just Farm Bureau insurance. I got a video on that. So in all my videos, if you hit the show more, I got a video on health insurance and what I'm doing there and why I made that decision. So I'm spending less there, less on my car. Like I said, you got time now. So I dove into my homeowner's insurance. I dove into my auto insurance, saving money, all those places. Another thing I did is we were paying $212 a month for cable. And I'm a 100% streamer now, and we pay right at 100. And I could be paying less than that, but I actually pay for 1,000 megabytes per second coming into the house for my Wi-Fi. I want really good audio and streaming experience, so I got AT&T fiber coming in the house. But all these things just started adding up, and it's around $1,500, $1,600 a month less I'm spending. Now that's my base spending. I still have, and I know you use these terms too. I put in an amount for go-go spending till I'm 75, and then I have an amount for slow-go spending until from 75 to 80. But and that is my story is very typical of the people I talk to. I have another retirement group that I meet with just on Fridays, worked at the same company that I did. And to the person, everybody's spending less money. You have more time to investigate. When you're working 10 hours a day and your hair's on fire and you're just trying to get stuff done, you don't have time to dive into auto insurance or healthcare or life insurance. Life insurance is another thing. I don't have life insurance. That was a hard move for me. I actually, something I did right is before I retired, I started a retirement group, like-minded people like me that are going into retirement. The other two guys are working part-time. They retired, but are working part-time. And I'm not really, very little. But we run all of our financial decisions by each other. If I'm getting ready to buy I bonds, or here's when, we'll have a topic. I'm planning on taking Social Security at this age. We run it by every financial decision I make. They know exactly how much money I've got, where I've got it at, what my fears are. And we have a topic each month. And going it alone in retirement, I think is crazy, because you got mistakes in your plan. You got oversights in your plan. I highly encourage people to sit down with financial advisors, sit down with a friend, sit down with a coach. You go on this alone, you'll make some mistakes. I can't imagine my journey without having that support.
Well, I think that, I'm sure you talk to a lot of people too. One of the biggest concerns about retirement is that I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And whether it's a financial advisor, whether it's a friend retiring at the same time, whether it's just we all have blind spots, and by definition, we can't see them. And so sometimes just opening that up to someone else can be hugely fruitful.
Right. And also, well, that's on a personal level. I mean, we really get down into the, where exactly my money is, and we get to make our own decision. But as a group, we these other two guys are there to help me, and I'm there to help them. But sitting down, I tell people, if you're going to retire, you got to talk to at least two financial planners. You talk to two financial planners, see what they got to offer for you. Start a retirement group like I did. You cannot do this alone. There's so much out there on YouTube. I love, James, your channel, and there's another 10 more that I routinely listen to. The information is out there, but it's not going to find you. You got to find it. Yeah. When to take Social Security. Do you need long-term care? What sequence of return risk? What about taxes? And taxes is something that I didn't think much of taxes before I retired. And I buy a comprehensive software package. It's really cheap. But it shows me, a lot of assumptions, what are market returns going to be? Monte Carlo does all that kind of stuff. What are my taxes going to be when I'm 70, 75? And a lot of people I've talked to said, hey, man, I'm not paying, I'm 62. I'm not paying any tax. Mm-hmm. And then RMDs hits them and they're like, ah.
Yeah.
So there's so many things you don't know out there, but it's really easy with channels like yours and mine and others that you can find it, but you've got to put in some time on it. And I was naive retiring. I did some basic 4% rule and said, oh, I'm fine. And then here's what I'm retiring to. I'm fine. And then you go, sequence of turn risk. How am I preparing for that? I knew I was retiring before 59 and a half. So I had some money outside of my IRA and that I could access. But, I did the basics right. But I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that I didn't know about. That you're either going to have to do the work yourself or you're going to hire a financial planner. Do whatever you want. And there's no right decision for everybody. There's a right decision for you.
Yeah, I love that. And, looking back on all that, in both your experiences, the experiences of those in your retirement group, the experience of those that you've even consulted through this, if you could leave people with one thing, or just what do you wish you knew at 53, leading up to retirement at 54 that you know now, is there any advice or anything that we haven't spoken about yet that you would leave people with as they prepare for that transition?
You know, well, one of the things um, I'm thinking about a lot right now is confidence to spend. Even though it looks like you've got enough money, and then you decide to retire, you got all this media stuff going on about the recession coming and sequence of return risk and all. You just want to dig a hole and hide in it and defend your money. So you need to do something to have the confidence to spend money. Maybe that's a financial advisor. Maybe that's a retirement group, but in a comprehensive software package or all three. But confidence to spend money is a real issue in retirement, especially if you got a big pension coming in, you got $8,000 pension coming in and $3,000 Social Security. I'm not worried about you. I'm talking about people living off their investments. Don't think that's a small deal. Confidence to spend, and another thing the first answer I was thinking to your question was what would I tell my 53-year-old self is everybody's scared to retire. Deciding to retire is scary. It's a scary thing because it's unknown. But the information is out there. There's so many great people putting out content in a genuine way, trying to help. And 90% of it, 99% of it's absolutely free. What you put out, James, is free. Just, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. If you want to do it on your own, great. If you need somebody to hold your hand and give you confidence to that, that's what I do. Okay. You, James, not Joe. that's what you do. But yeah, everybody's scared. Retire to something. Don't go it alone. Those are my main messages.
Yeah, and then I'm going to add on to that, Joe, because I love what you said of everyone's fearful, but how do we make decisions that our future self won't regret?
Right.
I think that's universal. I'm nowhere near retirement, but I have a young daughter, and I think about that. How do I spend my time? Well, do I want to be spending my time doing certain things or with my daughter and knowing how do you do things today that your future self is going to look back on and be grateful you made that decision to invest that time, that energy, that, cross that hurdle of that fear? I think that's a really important one. Otherwise, it's so easy to say, hey, I'll retire after my next bonus. I'll retire after my next stock vest. I'll retire after another year of accrued Social Security. And you wake up and you're 70, 75 years old one day and thinking, where'd that go?
Well, and a lot of people take for granted their health. I never did, but I talk to people that are 67 saying they're going to work 2 more years. And then they got all these plans for retirement. And I go, well, you'll be 69. How many years do you think you're going to be, you and your spouse, if you're married, are going to be healthy and able to do that? And then it's quiet. And then I say, you'll be lucky if you can have great physically active years to your 75. So you're down to 6 years. And that's sobering to people. They don't, that simple question you just asked, what's your, your 75-year-old self going to judge your decisions? How are they going to judge your decisions? And rarely is it going to be work 1 more year, work 2 more years. It's all about relationships. It's all about experiences. Controlling your time is wealth.
Yeah, love it. Well, Joe, you're on YouTube under Joe Kuhn. Where else can people find you, or is that the best place for them to
That's the best place. I do a little bit on LinkedIn, but I'm really just trying to focus on YouTube.
Perfect. So check out Joe Kuhn. Channel name or channel handle is Joe Kuhn Loves Retirement. Lots of great information there. Joe, thanks so much for being on the show today.
All right. Loved it. Thanks, James.
Once again, I'm James Knoll, founder of Root Financial. And if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients at Root Financial get the most out of life with their money, be sure to visit us at www.rootfinancialpartners.com.